and I walked to office rather than taking a metro. And I crossed every single road without looking to either of the sides, hoping a car will hit me so I don't have to go to work. And I think that was the point where I didn't see any better option than, sadly. I know how much damage wrong work environment can have on one. It's very rewarding when you look around yourself and you see 100 people when you join number 2 or number 3 around yourself. And that was when I realized that I actually thrive in chaos, and I decided to start my own agency and try to do it a little bit different than the agencies that were working at that time, and where I think the biggest part that is missing is actually the humanity element. And people stopped trusting the hiring managers and recruiters stop trusting the applications and people behind them because they think they're fake.
Welcome back to the Hello You Show. My name is Jessica Rice and I am your host. And today we have an incredible guest who brings a ton of wisdom in the industry and the recruitment space that I think you're going to find very insightful in today's market. Vicky Daugvilavičiūtė has spent the past decade building high-impact teams and people operations in early-stage startups and VCs. She's hired 300 plus people across different industries, built talent functions from scratch, and helped founders scale their businesses with data-driven strategies. Beyond that, Vicky is the founder of Just Be Better, a podcast, newsletter, and personal brand where she explores business, career growth, and personal development with no fluff conversations. She also recently co-founded a startup in the talent space, but we'll be talking more on that soon. And she also believes that great teams build great companies, and that the right environment can unlock anyone's potential, whether it's hiring, scaling, or navigating startup chaos. Vicky is always up for a real conversation. Vicky, I'm so happy to have you on the show with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. I don't think I could have said anything better than that.
You're very kind. Well, I know I love the introduction, and I'd love to hear a little bit more too, just about your journey, because I know you bring so much wealth with you, not only with the work that you're presently doing, but even how you got to this place in your life. Would you mind sharing just a little bit with us in your own words, what brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So as Jessica said, I'm Vicky. I've been in people and talent space for about a decade now. As majority of people in recruitment, I ended up here completely accidentally. Moved to London from Scotland, realized that I need a well-paying job. I have a master's degree in finance, but I didn't do anything with finance, and I didn't want to. So I started looking for a job that pays well, and sales and recruitment was the best options, and I landed a job in recruitment. Started with agency recruitment, which I honestly absolutely hated for quite a few different reasons, but it felt a lot of the time that I'm essentially selling something that people potentially need, but might not always want, and that was both ways. And the money aspect was always more important to me as employee to my company. And I left after a year, and I joined the company, early stage startup. I was employee number 19 or 20, I believe. I joined, there was another 3 recruiters at the same time. Lucky me, I managed to kick all of them out because they were my direct competitors. The company ended up buying me out from the agency, and that's how I started my career in startups, basically. For the first 4 years, I worked in elderly care tech industry, which was very rewarding emotionally, I think, and it was probably one of the nicest companies to sell because we were solving something that was real and very meaningful to people. During that time, I think we hired over 150 people, 170, something like that. I lost account by now. After 4 years with the business decided to, obviously it grew quite quickly. It was already 120 plus people when I left. And it got to a point where I didn't feel excited anymore. And it was nothing to do with the company itself, but they got to a stage that was growing a little bit slower. Processes were already in place. And that was when I realized that I actually thrive in chaos. And when I don't know what's happening, when there's a lot of ambiguity, that's where all of my strengths turn into one, and I actually know what to do, surprisingly. And I decided to start my own agency and try to do it a little bit different than the agencies that were working at that time, and still majority of them do. I partnered with companies and I tried to essentially find them people, but people that they actually need. I was always the one that used to tell people that you actually don't need this person at the moment. Like, we might need to figure out what's the best strategy. Is this the right person? Is this the right time? Which doesn't always work with startups, but that was my angle and I always kept it. After a few years, I moved back to Lithuania, where I'm originally from. I closed my company in the UK and I started working as a fractional person, just joining different startups for short stints, helping them grow, helping them learn. At the same time, currently working on opening another company, which is going to be still in talent space, but is going to be more tech related. I also started a podcast where I have you, Jessica, on. I've been talking for 4 minutes. Is there anything in particular you would like me to dive into, Jessica?
Oh, no, you don't need to apologize at all. Well, I love hearing your story. I think it's really fascinating. And I know I loved being on your podcast too. So I do have a little bit of insight that, I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing too. What makes recruiting so important to you? Because I know that many times there was kind of this misnomer around what recruiters were trying to do versus, I think, in the market that we're in today, we're starting to really see the value there. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to know, what brings meaning to you in the work and how you're helping other people?
So I think there's, on overall perspective on recruitment, there's a lot of different types of recruiters, and you will find that in probably every industry, but there's still a lot of people who come to recruitment just for money. You can earn decent living from hiring people, but I used to call it, you probably will have to bleep this out, but legal human trafficking, because you essentially try to get people and transport them somewhere, especially when I was working on international teams where I was trying to bring people from different countries. That generally sometimes felt like I'm just selling people for money to different countries. And what brings meaning to me in talent is actually when you come into early stage startup that doesn't have structure a lot of the time, they don't necessarily know what they need. If you work with the first time founders who just raised a lot of money, they will want absolutely everyone on their team that they might not even need. And then 2 months later, they will need to lay them off because they're not making any money and that person is not needed in the business. So helping the founders to actually figure out and gain that clarity on what is needed and what can bring success to the business, as well as actually finding people that are similar to me who thrive in that chaos and want to jump on a ship that didn't even start sailing yet and help to build the ship and see where it goes. And it's very rewarding when you look around yourself and you see 100 people when you join number 2 or number 3 around yourself.
You brought up a really good point too, I think, is helping companies to understand what it is that they really actually need within their business. I think we're seeing a lot of that in the market right now. I was just reading a post on someone who was hired and then let go relatively quickly. Do you feel like that's because people are not aware of actually what they need in order for their company to run well, and that's where you come in, or are there other strategies that they're employing?
I think there's quite a few different things that are at play here, because sometimes there's founders, and if they have investors, outside investors can dictate who they think they should bring into the business to help the business grow. Sometimes that's a social media trends or trends in general. I was laughing 2 weeks ago, I think I was speaking with the CMO, and we were laughing that social media manager is probably one of the first hires that a lot of startups hire when they don't need a social media manager. They need a brand person to start with, or they need a salesperson to start with. But because social media is so active nowadays, and everyone thinks that they must be on TikTok and do the dances and whatever they do, and they don't actually know what the dances are about. But they need that person to come on the team and join the team. So there's a couple of different areas. There's also, probably going to cancel myself here, but there's also ego hires that I call them. So if you're a first-time founder, and I know the feeling when you see a nice amount of money in your bank account, you're like, oh, I'm going to hire everyone I always wanted to have. So you see additional hires that just essentially might not directly boost your as a founder ego, but it still helps with that ego when you go from solopreneurship and being a team of 1 to 10 people, even though 6 of those people are actually needed for you in the next 2 years, not now. So there's a lot of different areas that comes at play in this. Also, just not knowing what you might need as well in a startup, because roles and recruitment in general is constantly changing, especially with AI nowadays. You want it or not, like, one role might exist today, it might not tomorrow. So you constantly need to adapt and think of what skills you actually need. Sometimes you know what skills you need, but there's no title for that role. So how to find that person, and then you end up hiring the wrong person because you assume that's the title. So yeah, there's a variation of different things that can make it more difficult to actually have more clarity and more definition on what should be the team to make you successful.
It's really fascinating to me. How important do you think then your hiring strategy is in relation to the success of your startup?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't think it's 100% of importance. I think, again, probably not the most popular opinion, but I think there's a lot of luck that comes into companies to start with. You might be very lucky and get your first hire who you potentially didn't even need at that point, but it was an absolute superstar that just wanted to roll the sleeves up and just do whatever it took to get you there. And then that person potentially shifted the job 3 times in the first year. So that can be one element of it. In terms of success as well, the market might come in. Like, I know a founder who they started in PPE, in personal protection equipment, about a month before COVID and all of the lockdowns. So you want it or not, his business ended up being in beautiful success, and he had a beautiful exit story without any hiring strategy. And they just ended up hiring absolutely anyone who were available at that time. Just to get them on the road and get them quicker to where they need to. And they fired and hired very quickly. And that was the strategy that I didn't approve of at all, from empathetic and just humane relationship probably with my candidates. But it worked for them, and everyone who'd been in the business made a lot of money because they were in the right place at the right time. But also, I think if you bring the right people at the right time, you will succeed much quicker, because people will feel more confident in helping you build your vision.
Well, you brought up earlier too that you thrive in chaos to a certain extent, and then you're also now bringing in, the humanity piece of that and how that relates to hiring. What are you looking for when you're looking to recruit someone as well? And I know that you care deeply about the people that you work with. Is there something more than just skill set that you have in your mind?
So it's very dependent, obviously, on where I'm working with and what company I'm working with. Because at the end of the day, I'm a partner to hiring team and hiring managers. And once in a while, it can be a situation where I might not be the best judgment person of who would succeed working with that founder, because we're completely opposite people. I'm there for a short stint. I'm looking for someone for a longer term. So a lot of the time I have to try and remove my biases and my emotions quite a bit. But just in general, I'm always looking for humanity in people, as cliche as that sounds. I have actually a very good example of opposite of humanity, where I was hiring for a head of people role, where you would assume someone is empathetic and cares about people deeply. And I always used to ask a question about mental health. And I asked the person, what's your idea of mental health and what support you would give, mental health support you would provide to employees in an early stage startup. And the person ended up going on a full-on rant that mental health is a made-up bubble that's going to burst at any time, that doesn't exist, and we shouldn't worry about spending money on things that doesn't exist. And that to me was like, I didn't even need to probe him on anything else. That was very clear. Yeah, that's a no-go. But I think for myself, I'm looking for genuine communication. And like, if you come to an interview with me, it's not your standard 10 questions and that's it. I always try to have a conversation and get to know people. Quite a few of my previous hires are really good friends of mine, which is quite ironic probably, because I technically sold them at some point in my life to a company. But yeah, I try to build those relationships, and it doesn't always work. But at least that's where I try to put my heart probably first. And not the best thing to do in recruitment, because I care too much about my candidates and then my clients. But at the same time, I always have a clear conscience. Most of the time I have.
Well, I know I love being on your podcast as well. And we've had a few good conversations, which led me to asking this question, because I know that when you were starting out, you have a personal experience yourself in relation to maybe someone who didn't believe in you or look at what you fully brought to the table. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Of course, yeah. It was actually one of the very first couple of jobs I have. I'm trying to not to disclose which company that was with. But I ended up working with a patronizing is the right word probably. I just started in recruitment, was first 2 years probably in the industry for me. And I worked with a person that used to start every single conversation by saying, I don't want to sound patronizing, but, which now when I'm a little bit more mature and older, I realize that this is exactly what patronizing is, but let's move on from that. And the whole work environment, I worked in a place where it was lack of female in the office, lack of women in general in their relationship, and majority of the conversations were about cricket, about sports, about what they did with their parents. Most of them came from quite wealthy families. And I was the only Eastern European at that point with still quite a strong accent, good English knowledge. By that time, I had my master's degree already. So I would assume I could have spoken English at that time. But the manager was extremely micromanagement style. He used to check every single email I sent. He used to listen to every single conversation I had just to make sure that it sounds British. And that was the job that I was actually let go. And that whole experience, when I think about it now, I've done quite a lot of years of therapy. So probably that's why I take it with a pinch of humor in it. But it was probably one of the most traumatic experiences in general from career perspective, because to this day I still carry the anxiety that I'm going to get fired at any point. And my mentor will always laugh, because when I worked with my mentor, every single meeting I used to have, I used to tell him, I think I'm going to get fired now. And he was like, you just got promoted. And at that company, I got promoted every single performance cycle. And he was like, you literally never missed a promotion and got promoted twice a year. I don't think they're going to fire you for no reason. But in my mind, I always was scared of that. And that particular situation, but whilst I was still working there, and I think I said it to you, trigger warning to anyone, it led to suicidal thoughts. And I used to live in London, Paddington, and I worked in about an hour away from where I lived. And I walked to office rather than taking a metro. And I crossed every single road without looking to either of the sides, hoping a car will hit me so I don't have to go to work. And I think that was the point where now I laugh at it, because that was quite a strong emotional decision to make at that point, but I didn't see any better option then, sadly. And I think that's where the biggest empathy comes for me, because I know how much damage wrong work environment can have on one.
Well, I do appreciate you sharing the story. And I know what it's like to go through healing on this other side of trauma. And so we learned how to tell it in a lighthearted manner.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also imagine how crippling that must have felt at that time, to be afraid every moment that you're going to be fired, and then reaching a level where you felt like you had no other options and you'd rather just be hit by a car
Mm-hmm.
than to go to work.
There was quite a lot of upsides, because like I obviously got fired. It was actually the funniest part, because I got fired. I actually don't think I told you this. The day I got fired, I left the office and I was crying, but I was crying with happy tears. And there was a guy, I don't know if you know, the people like charity people who collect signatures and ask you to sign and then you donate money. And I just got fired. At that point, I was still early in my career. So I had no money to give to anything. But I ended up speaking with that guy for like half an hour and just being in the best mood, which I normally just ignore, because like I have nothing to give. And I ended up actually signing up to give to charity. And I was like, I'm probably going to need that money back at some point from the charity, but we're going with this. And I was lucky enough to land my next job where, as I mentioned, I very quickly managed to prove myself, and it helped me build my confidence to a certain level. I don't think I ever got to a level where I don't have anxiety. And I was speaking with my current boss. I'm currently in a short-term project as a fractional talent partner as well. And I was speaking with my current boss as well, that like every single day I wake up is like, oh, I wonder if they're going to cancel my contract. And I'm like, I've been here for 3 weeks. There's no reason for them to cancel my contract. I physically couldn't have done anything more. And I tend to, this leads a lot of the time to overworking and working long hours and overdoing things. So I have to be very cautious of that. But it got me to a point where I learned what I don't want in my life, what I want in my life. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts that anyone can get, as cliche as that sounds.
I think you brought up so many powerful moments right there, which is number one is, you know, when we're feeling like, it's amazing how companies have a power over us, and even the things that they may not even realize are insidious impact us even throughout our lives if we're allowing for it. And I know that it still creeps in for you. And then you mentioned burnout, and how much burnout is really impacted by the expectations of the companies or the employers that we have, and sometimes not having the correct boundaries to put into place, or the correct ownership of even what we bring to the table. How do you feel like this helps you or informs you even with how you approach your recruitment in your company when you're looking for candidates?
Do you mean setting up boundaries, or when what I'm searching in a candidate, from what perspective?
I think I mean just, you know, how it's shaped or how it changed the way that you viewed recruitment in general.
So I think the first thing that really had a massive impact on me on how I view candidates, because all of this experience was in a hardcore recruitment agency where Wolf of Wall Street type of environment. You ring a bell when you hire someone. You have to hit specific number of phone calls every single day, even though at that point no one was answering the phone calls anymore. And then I know this is a very controversial topic. I don't think recruiters calling to managers going to work unless you know the person, but that's for a different time. And I think, to me, trying to keep that relationship with candidates and actually being transparent, and I did tell to quite a lot of people in my career, like, look, this role is not for you. You're not ready for it. Your skill set doesn't work for this. But actually treating them as a human being rather than ghosting. And I'm not gonna lie, I did ghost people in my career for one reason or another. Sometimes it's just because I do overwork myself, and I tend to have too many things on the plate. And I think I mentioned that I do have ADHD, and I have some tendencies that are quite funny. Like, if I see an email that I'm going to respond later and I don't respond to it in 3 days, then I have anxiety about opening the email and I don't respond to it for another week, and that adds just more. And then I just leave that email. So it's still probably in my inbox. And I never do that maliciously, but I always try to help my candidates, even if not in the actual recruitment process. And I met, as I said, a lot of friends. And a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with a candidate who is also an angel investor. And when he started talking about the companies that he invests, I remember that one of my friends is currently raising that actually matches with the person who is raising. So I ended up making introductions, which I know a lot of recruiters actually would charge money for. And to me is like, I actually enjoy doing these things. And half of the people I know probably will at some point get a message from me that, oh, I know this person. They're actually quite nice. You should meet each other. So I started building relationship and network around me that I actually care about. And that's probably the biggest change, because when I worked in agency, you are not taught how to treat people right. And as funny as that sounds, it's not actually not funny. It's disgusting. They used to call clients, one of my employers at that point used to call clients cash cows and candidates walking dollars. So that's how you see people. And I think that removes the humanity completely from the person itself. And they don't care if they put a person in the wrong environment or is a bad environment, or as long as they play someone, they're happy with it. And they manage that beautiful relationship for 3 months and they just forgot about you.
Well, I know that you've told me that you do some special things for the clients that you do have that separate you or differentiate you from other practices. And what are some of the things that you do to really express your gratitude?
For clients, and I think what I do for some of my candidates, not for everyone, it's just sometimes, because I do work in a lot of different type of setups and different type of just in general processes and different ways with my candidates. But like I surprised a couple of companies recently because I sent a massive basket of with presents to my candidates when they got a job. And everyone was shocked when there's like, no recruiters do that. And to me, it was like, I actually want to congratulate you for your first day. Because normally they send presents to clients rather than candidates. And to me, I think that's more important that candidate actually celebrates the first day and hopefully fantastic job. It's very sad when the job doesn't work out, but it happens once in a while as well.
Well, I think it's a beautiful testament to the way that you value working with people and how you've really stepped into taking ownership over your company in the way that you want it to be run. If we were to pivot a little bit, I know you mentioned too that there's a lot going on in the marketplace right now, not only with layoffs, but then in the way that people are applying for work and the way that they're having to compete. Could you expand a little bit on that too, just for people who are considering, like, how do they go into the market, and also what other companies are facing right now too?
That's probably my favorite topic nowadays. I think just in general, we're seeing a massive shift in recruitment in general. And with AI coming into place over the last probably 9 months, that it was a massive storm of AI. AI agents, AI companies, everything's AI nowadays. From a recruitment perspective, we are facing quite a big challenge, because as a recruiter, for example, if I posted a job, I might receive anywhere up to a couple thousands of CVs. A lot of CVs are automated, a lot of CVs are fake. So it kind of takes out my time by screening the CVs that doesn't exist. And it's going to be even bigger problem in coming years. I believe it's forecasted that 1 in 4 applications by 2026, 1 in 4 applications is going to be fake. What I mean by fake, because I got that asked quite a few times, it's either applicant that doesn't exist, or there's a couple of countries, I don't want to name them specifically, actually launched a strategic approach to disrupt the market and get the money from companies, essentially. So they have, with all of the AI and deep fake, you start seeing wrong people joining for interviews. And I don't know if you ever seen those videos, but some of them are very creepy, because you can have a full-on fake visual identity on you. And now it started with lift your hand and the avatar couldn't do that. Now you cannot even tell, like, it literally looks like it's that person that you're talking with. And by doing that, they essentially stop actual candidates looking for jobs. get the jobs and get to the front of hiring managers. And coming into the side of the candidates itself, that's the problem that they are facing, because they are competing with AI, and not in the very direct way that AI is taking the jobs directly. It's more that AI is spamming inboxes of recruiters, of hiring managers, of application centers, of all of the job boards so much that a lot of the time human profile is not even being seen. So there's a lot, the whole market is currently in an interesting space, because we're creating AI to solve AI and then introducing another AI to oversee both of the AIs, where I think the biggest part that is missing is actually the humanity element. And people stop trusting the hiring managers and recruiters stop trusting the applications and people behind them, because they think they're fake. But I can expand on this a lot if you want, because that's probably one of the topics that I've been talking for way too much for the last couple of months.
Well, I think it's a really important topic, especially given today, the climate that we're in. Now, you had mentioned that you had firsthand experience, I think, with one of these deep fake scenarios.
It's really
also,
creepy.
Right?
Yeah, it's really creepy. I didn't have one, because I saw one of my friends. I have quite a lot of people, quite a big network of recruiters in my network. So you see all of those horror stories from a lot of different people. The one that I had was about probably 5 months ago. So still at the beginning of AI being introduced into interviewing as a fake person. So the one that I had, the person joined the call. There was, every single time I asked a question, there was a slight beep during our conversation, which didn't click to me at the beginning, because I don't expect candidates be in a recording studio, so I expect them to have some background noises or something. But about 10 minutes in, it gets suspicious that after every single question, there's a beep. And the person literally gave me textbook perfect answers to which I'm sitting as like, how, like, there's no rapport, there's no communication, but the answers that's giving is absolutely perfect. And the more I talk to the person, like, I was very glad that by that time I already started my podcast. So I knew how to track reading of the screen. Because before that, I just assumed that, there's a glitch in the screen, there's the person who's just nervous, the eyes, but the person actually, so that particular AI was where I asked the question, AI hears me, so it was voice recognition AI, and writes the answer to my candidate, and my candidate just literally read the answer. And it took me, that for the first time, I was literally 25 minutes in, I was like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, this is too good to be true. And it turned out the person interviewed with one of my friends later as well, and they quote exactly the same thing, and the answers were exactly the same. So it was confirmed that it was fake, because I wasn't entirely sure. But yeah, it's getting very creepy. I saw a lot of developers and software engineers interviews where a person joins and the names differ from like CV name, and the person who joins on the screen differs. You also always can assume that, potentially friend's laptop, friend's Google Meets or whatever. Then there's some glitches in the background, something happening. And then I heard quite a few cases now that people do get hired. And that's one of the situations. There's another podcast, I can't recall the name, I think it's on BBC, where they actually talk about it. And one of the countries, they infiltrate the fake agents to get data about the companies, essentially, they get paid for 3 months doing nothing, because they're not developers, they're not engineers, they're not the people who were hired to do the jobs. I think it's harder to do that in the early stage startups, but it's not impossible. Because in startup, normally there's not that many people. You get caught quicker if you don't do things. But first 3 months is normally onboarding, and you do a lot of different things, so it might slip.
Yeah, it's really creepy. I was reading a few different articles and watched some of the videos that you were referencing as well. What can companies do? What are they doing to help circumvent this challenge? Because it seems like it's twofold and nobody's really winning in this case.
The only thing that currently people do, in my humble opinion, is go and complain on LinkedIn. because it's not much, I think, that at the moment you can do about it. You have to try and figure out if the person is fake somehow. So the reference calls started to come back. References were one of the things that quite popular in some countries and we're dying out in different countries, but they are making a comeback full on, where people want to speak with your managers, they want to speak with people that you know, and they confirm with the companies that you definitely work for those companies as well before officially hiring you. And in all honesty, I do not know how to fight with people who join the call. Because at least from what I've seen, the CV looks exactly the same as every single CV. The person looks like I look right now, and I probably move a little bit too much, but if I moved less, you probably couldn't tell that there's a fake filter on my face and that I don't actually look like that. So it's a hard challenge, and I think it's going to be even harder in the coming years.
What do you feel like candidates can do? Because you mentioned earlier too that candidates now, if they're submitting their resumes, then oftentimes they're not being seen because there's so many other CVs that are going out that are AI driven. What can they do to ensure that they are being seen?
So I think starting from the beginning on the candidate's perspective, I would highly recommend not to overuse AI in your applications. And I'm not saying don't use AI. That's definitely not what I'm saying. We have these tools for a reason. Use them and make sure you get the best of them. But the first biggest mistake that a lot of candidates do, they create their CVs in the same template that's been used for years. But now because they use AI, even the wordings are exactly the same. And you have 20 CVs and you don't have any personality in them, you don't see any identity, and you can't really feel the people through the CV. So for me at the moment, LinkedIn is probably where I look for people more. I try to check on their personal brand, on what I don't check their social media outside of LinkedIn. Don't worry, I'm not going to stalk you on TikTok on your Instagram. I don't have time for that. But your LinkedIn, on what type of posts you comment on, how you speak about things as well. I tend to talk about topics that are not always the most comfortable, and some people who comment under my post or get into discussions with me not always know, even if you don't agree with me, you don't have to be impolite, but you tend to read some of the comments that are in a negative light, or so. Make sure that your brand on LinkedIn is how you want to be perceived, and what you comment, what you share, how you write about yourself. And I always recommend people, if you're actually looking for a job, make sure your LinkedIn represents you rather than is another copy paste from ChatGPT of how to create LinkedIn professional website, and then have exactly the same emojis as another 200 people with the same descriptions. And that actually is the case, because it was at the very beginning, every single person went and asked to describe and create a profile for LinkedIn, I think. And there's exactly the same words and exactly the same sentences with exactly the same emojis. And I was like, this is brilliant. I have 20 people who look exactly the same.
I think it's a really good point. And I think that I was going to ask, but I'm glad you brought it up, that how important LinkedIn is now, even over maybe a resume, because to me, it's a validation of who they are. And I used it even when I was still as a hiring manager before, just to see if what they had listed made sense in relation to what their experience was that they were putting out there. How important do you think it is then to leverage tools like LinkedIn to get to know other hiring managers rather than just submitting an application?
So I have probably dual opinion on this. The reason why I'm saying this is I do agree that sometimes it's good to message managers directly, especially in startups. But I think what would be very helpful if managers actually communicated that as well, if they want to be connected or want to be reached out about specific roles. Because I have a very good example where I posted a job that was actually before AI, but I posted a fully remote position for a head of finance, and it was a role anywhere in the world. And I posted the role Friday evening, and by Monday morning, I had almost 12,000 applications. And if you can imagine, about, let's say, 10% of those 12,000 messaged me privately as well to discuss the role. So I opened my LinkedIn and I still have more than half probably of those messages that never been opened, just because it got completely spammed. In all honesty, I don't think there's a solution at the moment. And that's something that I'm actually trying to build right now to help overcome this. I'm not able to expand a little bit too much on this, but to try and build a little bit more involved and a little bit more unique CVs, in such a way, let's call them CVs, portfolios, maybe that's the better word, for candidates and help them find jobs in a different way rather than just sending the profile and messaging the manager. Because in all honesty, I don't know how effective messaging to manager is when AI is spamming the inboxes and you have AI send sales calls instead of getting on your phone, you get on LinkedIn. That's automated. That's already using AI. Candidates use AI to message managers. Candidates use AI to apply for jobs. So inboxes gets really filled as well. So I'm sorry, but I don't have the actual answer on this, how effective that is at the moment. It can be if you're lucky and you get into that top 5, if you get seen, but it really, really depends.
Well, I appreciate you expanding on that more, because I think these are the questions that so many are having. And on that same kind of, maybe on the flip side of that token is then how important are having personal connections, maybe within your own network, for getting a job or getting hired right now?
I think it depends on the countries and the roles and everything, but personal connections is always the easiest way to get hired. If you know someone, if you spoke with the person who know that you're real and they know that you're cool, don't be scared to message them and ask for reference, ask them to connect you. It's definitely still one of the strongest ways to get into jobs, I think. And companies increasing their referral programs across the board, just because if someone is already in a job and they know someone good, they are more likely to refer someone for the same job if they like them, and they're not going to refer someone that they actually hate to work in the same company. So the hiring manager straight away is going to trust that candidate more. And there's obviously a lot of different biases that comes into that as well. I think managing your network, building that employee brand around yourself and how you talk about yourself, who is your personality, how you want to be perceived. And I honestly think it's going to be one of the most important things in the next couple of years at least, until better tools come in place. Because at the moment, LinkedIn, you want it or not, has a full-on monopoly and you can't really change that just now.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing. I think it's really helpful there's a lot of job seekers out there right now. I know we just partnered with another company too, who's trying to help with people getting hired. What would be insights or advice that you would have then if people are interested in reaching out or finding a recruiter? Is that something worth exploring on their own?
I actually wanted to add this point, but I went on a full-on ramble about things and I forgot. Don't be scared of reaching out to recruitment agencies and recruiters. They are there, even though I potentially didn't have the best luck with some of the recruiters. I also met some of the most amazing people who are there to help and genuinely find you a job. And they are getting paid to find you a job. So they will do their best. If they have anything, they definitely help you in every shape or form they can. I also probably from the recruiter's perspective, just to make their life easier, I know I said that CV is becoming redundant, but is not yet redundant. It's still heavily used. So make sure that you optimize your CVs as well for different things. I promise you, no one's going to read 12 pages of your CV. I know some of you still think that we do have time for that. We don't. There's a lot of research, and I have quite a lot of resources on my website and on my LinkedIn. And if anyone wants, I'm happy to share that as well, of how to make your resume a little bit more clear and more communicative from your side of when you say what you want to say and how you communicate with your CV quicker and better. because it still matters, you want it or not, even though I don't agree with CVs anymore, but they're still there and they're not going to be redundant that quickly.
That was leading to my next question. If people wanted to at least just get in touch with you or learn more about some of the services that you provide, what's the best way that they can connect or reach out to you?
So it's probably would be my LinkedIn. I'm very active on it. I am not going to lie, I'm not responding very quickly on LinkedIn at the moment just because I'm in 3 different projects, but I'm trying my best to respond to everyone within a week at least. You can find me Vicky Daugvilavičiūtė. I believe Jessica will add my name in the chat. It's not an easy one to spell, but I promise you it's the only one there. Or you can drop me an email at vicky@justbebetter.today. I'm on all social medias as well, on TikTok. I'm not really active on it, but I'm on there, as well as YouTube and Instagram.
Well, yes, we'll definitely make sure to put everything into the show notes. I think you're providing so much valuable wisdom. I want to go check out some of the resources that you have as well. And one other question I had in relation to just the CV too is I know initially it was all about, keywords and making sure it was keyword optimized so that it could be scanned easier. How is that in relation to some of the conundrum that we're facing with AI? How do we, is it still SEO that is king, or is it now like, how do we weave in more personality?
So it depends who you ask, to be honest. And it's always a big debate between recruiters, because there's part of recruiters who say that and I said that before as well, that ATS, there are specific ATS that can screen your CV for specific buzzwords and everything. Realistically, especially I predominantly work in startup space, a lot of startups are not investing in such tools. So your CV most likely are going to be seen by person. And how to optimize buzzwords is relatively important, but I think not the essence of buzzword itself, but the fact when you use buzzwords, your sentences becomes clearer a lot of the time, because those words are used in the context of that particular role. And if you use the buzzwords in that role, it will make it a little bit more familiar to the hiring manager that you've been there and done that. I think from that sentiment. I know a lot of recruiters are going to disagree with me on this, but I think to me, what's important in your CV is just have clean, don't add bold, bright red letters. And I don't want to feel like I open your CV and you're screaming at me from the first thing I'm seeing. If you're applying for different countries, check what is popular in there and what's legal, what's not. Some countries very pro photos on applications. I personally recommend everyone to remove photos, because there's a lot of research on biases that your photo can add. Don't add details like how many kids you have or your exact street address and your PO box. People shouldn't care about that if they actually want to find a good employee. If they care about those details, I would really consider if that really aligns with what you're looking for as well. But just make it clear, keep bullet points, make sure that you have a couple of accomplishments, what you achieve, add numbers into there. If you can't put numerical assignment basically to every single thing that you did, what impact did you do and have on the specific thing, what that made you feel, what you accomplished, what impact that had on business. If you can communicate that on your CV, it's going to be much more valuable than having a very pretty canvas CV with a lot of pictures, a lot of colors, and not a lot of essence in it, essentially. Wow. And there's a lot of free templates online. If you want, I have quite a few of them. I use one very standard one-pager. Try not to use more than 2 pages. If you have up to 10 years experience, I promise you can fit your experience in 1 page a lot of the time. You just need to figure out what to cut that is a fluff. But if anyone needs a template, let me know. I'll send it. I'll share it.
Well, so much valuable wisdom. I think that we could probably go on to that topic for a really long time. And I'm so appreciative of you sharing your insights and knowledge there. I know there's a ton of people who really are looking for that right fit right now. And I'm curious to know, what would be as a final statement that you would have for those who are out there? Maybe they've been out in the job market for a little bit of time and maybe they're feeling a little bit discouraged. What would be some encouraging words or some hope that you could give them?
It will be better. It will get better. I think, talking from personal experience, there are moments when you think there's no other way, but there is a way, and I guarantee if you want it, you will find a way, and just don't give up. Sometimes you might need to take, a side path to find your own path, but there is a way, and always keep going and keep trying. And as I always say, just try to be just a little bit better than yesterday and everything will sort itself out. And if anyone wants to talk or anyone needs any help, feel free to reach out. My inbox, while not always very quick at being answered, but it's always seen and I always get in touch with people and I always respond to that. But yeah, never give up, basically.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing with us. Thank you for those words. I know it means a lot to those who are out there. It is I feel like it's the Wild West of the modern era that we're trying to deal with and understand how do we navigate these waters more efficiently. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing. I love your story, and it's so encouraging too, because you bring the wisdom from your own career, and then you bring the humanity into the company, the way that you work with people today. And I think that's a huge testament to your beliefs, your core values, and why people should have a little bit more hope in our world.
I honestly hope and I believe that everything should sort itself out. It will be better. And yeah, it was absolute pleasure, Jessica. I know I tend to ramble, so if anyone wants to hear more cohesive thoughts of mine, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat and help people.
Definitely. We'll put everything into the show notes. You can go check out Vicky's podcast at Just Be Better as well. So much rich information on there also. Thank you so much again for joining, and make sure to join us again next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Hello You Show. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on this journey today. If you found value in our conversation and want to support the show, please take a moment to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also deeply appreciate it if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also enables others seeking inspiration and authenticity to discover our community. Until next time, keep embracing your story with purpose.